Ladies and gentlemen, from the depths of flyover country in the heartland of America, the Kansas City on the other side of the mighty Mo, welcome to Hittin the Bricks with Kathleen. I am John, your humble hubby host, and today we'll be talking to Kathleen about Irish American Heritage Month and Women's Appreciation and more of our March Madness. There's a lot to cover, so let's start hitting the bricks.
So, can we ever have a normal beginning instead of you being weird?
I mean, that's a question you're asking me, and I don't think I'm really in charge of normal beginnings. Hey, baby. Kathleen.
You're so weird.
Kathleen, it's April 2nd.
It
and
is
we
April
missed
2nd.
we only did one of these in March because I had a headache. I think that's what happened. Is literally
That's what happened.
I had a migraine the day we were supposed to shoot one of these in March, and that was not happening in the condition I was in. And let's see what's happened. We've had chewy projectile vomiting in the meantime. So
I'm
something
not sure
else.
our listeners care about Chewy eating too much sweet potato.
A little too much sweet potato and then projectile vomiting while we all slept.
You said it twice now.
Yeah, because one of these cuts is going to get in. So,
at some point, we need to draw a line on what we share with our listeners.
Okay. Go ahead and write in and tell us where you think the line should be drawn on what we share with you. In the meantime,
I have a feeling
we'll keep
projectile
stretching.
vomit is one of those.
Is that going to be one of the lines? How come I think you might have your finger on the pulse of your listeners?
So,
PD.
John.
Yes. Kathleen. Hey, baby.
This past month, March.
Yes. What about it?
Well, it was a very exciting month, and I was extremely busy answering questions. I did in blogs, and I did also in emails and on client reports. So that was the whole idea of doing the second March one, was to tell our listeners exactly what we've been doing for both Women's History Month and Irish American Heritage Month.
Two of my favorite celebrations, to be honest with you.
John, you don't have a drop of Irish blood in you.
No, I don't.
No.
Really not much if I do. You have more than I do.
Yes, I do.
You have far more than I do, because you're like in the 2% range or something, aren't you?
15.
Oh, the 15% range, and I have not.
My brothers and my mother are in the 25 to 30% range. So that's exactly where I wanted to begin, is with the Irish American Heritage Month. And as you mentioned, my family, an African American family, has quite a bit of Irish, as does a lot of African American.
So you're not
people.
irregular in that. There are a lot of African American families that have a great deal of Irish in them.
About 15% of our African American men have an Irish bloodline, a DNA.
Okay.
In that whole region of England, Scotland, Ireland, we have most African Americans do have it. And a lot of our clients want to know why African Americans have so much Irish bloodline, and our white clients are related to them.
Well, I would have assumed that would have been a slavery thing.
That is correct. And what has happened is, in the Irish American Heritage Month, the definition of it, the purpose of it, was to recognize and celebrate the significant contributions of Irish immigrants and their descendants to the United States, both historically and culturally. Well, just like as many Americans, white Americans, might say, I'm German, I'm Irish, and so forth, African Americans also know that they are African and German and Irish, and those are also the influences of their culture because they're of enslavement and because of community. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention in all of this is many of our clients want to know what line did their Irish heritage come from.
So, like, is it from my mom's side or my dad's side?
Exactly. Maternal or paternal, which grandparent. What I want to make sure people know is that one of my last clients, for example, It was through an enslavement, but we need to go a step further when we talk about the heritage. So I had a case that I did write about of William O. Moseley, who not only claimed all of the children, he educated them and named them in his will, and his sister was the witness.
So, this is a white Irish owner of people.
Yes. Matter of fact, John, William O. Moseley was a slave trader.
Okay, so he was hip deep in the sale of human beings, but he had a few correct. That he had a special favor for, and he educated them.
2 women in particular.
2 women.
One, he named something in their will to the children that was begotten by him.
Oh, so he actually supported the children of the women he raped?
That is...
Okay.
A way to translate that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But he also took 7 of them and made sure that they were educated, moved them to Ohio, put them in Oberlin College. One of them, and this is in Jackson, Mississippi, one of them came home and during the Reconstruction era was a state representatives. The others, including his male and female offspring, were educated, and in 1870 you see them living next door to their white dad.
So was this just an early biracial marriage, or was this...
He never married a white person.
Told them where they could go, what they could be.
They all called him Dad. The children were named in his will. They were asked to be the administrators of his will, and this is Mississippi.
So he had a definite fondness for his children.
His daughter took care of him when he died in the 1870s or 80s. His daughter next door took care of him. And the son-in-law.
And was the son-in-law, I'm assuming, was black or white? Or
everybody else is black. Now his
So did he just end up marrying into people, humans that he owned?
The mother of these children, one of them was born at the very end of the war. And in his will, he even said... If this particular one was, I don't remember his name was Tim or Tom, if the last one is mine and the mother says so, please include him.
Okay, so he was making sure that anything he had a hand in birthing was going to be named in his will. Is that true?
That is correct. Yes, and he said, all the children begotten by me. His brother did the same thing, but he only named one child.
On the same plantation?
The brother was on another plantation in Mississippi.
Okay, so 2 plantations. They like cream with their coffee. And from there, we have Irish Heritage Month.
Well, my point on all of this is his heritage and their descendants.
Right.
So imagine the influence of my client, who is African American, and he knew some of the story, but he didn't have the facts. And I was able to find all these documents to prove that this, not only did this happen, they were educated in Oberlin. It also said in his will of William O. Moseley that they had a choice of going to education, or he would also pay for them to go to Liberia if they preferred.
Which Liberia was Lincoln's fever dream of that if you gave all the slaves in America freedom, that you could also give them a one-way ticket to Liberia. Wasn't that the idea?
It was a black it was a black colony, basically, for African Americans to go there and have their own colony.
I want to reserve a little spot here just for a real heavy sigh, because let me...
Are you done?
I just needed to have
John,
that.
as it is, I'm tongue-tied because it's hard to explain that this is an extreme case, but not an unusual case. We see it a lot in Louisiana. We see it a lot in the South. This particular family was from Virginia, and that's where we see it a lot also, is in Virginia, just like President Jefferson.
Okay, hang on. Wait. You said this is Virginia, but you were saying that this was Mississippi.
Right. The family was from Virginia, moved to Mississippi, the white family. Oh, okay.
So the family was an old family. So they had been in the United States for quite some time. If they were coming from Virginia.
They're Scotch-Irish. That's correct.
Okay, so they've been here for a long time. They end up in Mississippi as plantation owners Two
Yes.
brothers, side-by-side plantations.
And apparently the family had no problems with it because, as I said, when he died and the black son was named the administrator, he had no white children. The sister was the witness. This is his eldest son. And it's all in the court records. It's not like it's a question. This happened and it's recorded as is at the time.
See, and that really does make you wonder. Well, I don't know if I can wonder that in any sort of polite terms. The idea behind somebody owning somebody and then
Correct.
fathering children with them, that right there to me is a poisoned well.
It is.
There's no way to look at it other than these are the children of rape.
Okay.
Even though I could understand at the time that rape is one of the smaller indignities that may be suffered by women at the time.
The point I'm saying is those children had to be totally influenced by their Irish ancestry because their mother, who was enslaved by William Moseley for over 20 years, because the children were 20, from the oldest to the youngest had a 20-year span, those children lived in this community and was influenced by these Irish people who were their ancestors. So they also had, of course, their African American ancestors, which, of course, we all celebrate. But it clearly states in the purpose of it is Irish immigrants and their descendants to the United States. It's not about what was necessarily going on, except the Irish influence within the African American community, because literally we were descendants living on the Irish plantations.
Right.
So that was one of the biggest that was the biggest conversation I had on my blog spot. And in
extremely
people who
interesting.
wrote in. Yes,
Yeah.
they are quite concerned of why they're related to Black people.
Right.
And why did Black people why were they okay with saying that they had Irish blood? So, John, I wrote a whole blog on it because it was almost...
Yes,
I did.
You did write a whole blog on
I did. It's called Researching the American Black Irish by Blood. I did talk about some vocabulary that people aren't familiar with. And I also talk about the William O. Moseley case and his son George, who served as a Hinds County representative. So one of the other things, I'm just going to mention a couple things. I thought it was a fun one because people kept asking me, were Irish really slaves? I had about a dozen questions around that topic.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. I've heard that a bunch. Instagram feed you're looking at, but go ahead.
Well, a lot of people want to say, no, they were indentured servants. They were indentured servants. And that's true, too. But there was a time that they were, of course, brought in as slaves, and then they decided it was distasteful for white people to be slaves, and so they turned some to indentured servants.
Right.
But during this large period of time before 1865,
right,
even in America, we had Irish people kidnapping Irish people to both sell them into slavery on the earlier years or as selling them as indentured servants. So I wrote
Sounds
an
like
article,
slavery to me, so.
Well, they only had to serve 7 to 21 years, depending on the contract.
So they were only slaves for 7 to 21 years. Yeah, we've had this conversation before. You don't get too far with me on that. I'm like, yeah, okay, so you were only a slave for a contracted period of time. You had no right over your own autonomy. Yeah, I got that much better than...
Oh, okay, John.
Open-ended.
Thank you. So I wrote, I put up a few articles and some information on looking for the Irish kidnapping the Irish. That was the title of the blog.
And
I did, well, quite a bit, of course. I mean, I've done research with clients who had the same scenario, especially in the Northeast, especially early on when we had the sugar rum slaves time.
Okay.
So I did a couple articles and some examples on that time frame, as well as some of the kidnapping cases, if that helps anybody research their own family tree.
I think it'd be worthwhile to run through if you have an Irish heritage.
So, John, one of the other things that's in that article is I just kind of embedded it because I had a lot of questions about social media and how do people know this is true or not? Where do they get it from?
Okay. Yeah.
So I talked about the social media of yesteryear, which was the newspaper. It was just as feverish as it is now. Messages were sent into newspapers. People fought through the newspaper instead of Facebook, and they would be tried by the public pretty much, just like we do it here, whether or not someone's innocent or had bad intentions.
Just
all of this
the speed
came
was
through
different.
Newspapers. That is correct. It didn't have a wildfire effect. It was just a slow burning fire that crossed the United States.
Okay, yeah. The speed of transmission was slower. Now, that was always one of my favorite things in media was understanding those cycles. Now it happens on an hour-to-hour basis as opposed to a week-to-week or month-to-month basis.
Exactly.
But I, what was it I said the other day? But I digress. Madam, please. You can reclaim your time.
May I? So the Irish, those were the two articles I really wanted to mention on the Irish American Heritage Month. Okay. And I also wanted to mention Women's History Month.
Yes, indeed.
So as you know, what I like to do is bring out the things we might not be thinking about, but they could have caused a brick wall in our research.
Okay.
There's these other scenarios. If we are only following what we know and not some of the other facts, we may never find our ancestors. So one of the things I brought up for Women's History Month, also last month, was researching your lynched female ancestors. And it was not just for African Americans, of course.
Seriously.
They were the highest number of demographic that was lynched. We're lynching women, especially out west, a lot of Latin and indigenous women. And there were Mexican girls that I talked about in an article entitled Researching Your Lynched Female Ancestors. There was a black woman. I mentioned a white woman who was a brothel owner. And
no, was that lynched or hanged?
They actually used the word lynched in the newspaper.
Wow, so they just went in and because to me, lynchings are typically, mob sort of thing. There's not like a due process going on.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And so those are the examples I put in this particular article. And then I do give advice on how to look up these ancestors and were your ancestors part of the lynch mob?
Oh, okay.
Right.
That would be interesting.
So one of the big things to go with that is if you're looking to see if your ancestor was part of the lynch mob, you want to look at the Republican paper versus the Democrat paper. Because the Republican paper would name all the people who were trying to lynch someone because they were sympathetic to the person being lynched.
Well, this is the Republican Party of Lincoln, not the Republican Party paper of today, which I'm just going to put a pin in that real quick. If you don't know your history, go back and see how the parties flipped. We might see something again similar. But the extremism of the Democrats of the mid-1850s and 60s basically reversed with the Republican Party through the same time frame until Lincoln's Republican, in essence, turned into what we call now the Democratic Party.
John, you're giving people educational views that people probably thought, I didn't know that guy was that smart.
He's not. Don't believe a word I say without checking it out. But you're going to find out if you check that out that that's true.
The other thing that I notice that people, when they're doing their women research, that they think women changed their names. That was not a thing until more recently in history. So I did an article on March 6 on researching women who kept their maiden names. These were women who, for different reasons, whether they came from a higher society than their husband, they were more prominent or actors, and I'm talking the 1800s, they often kept their maiden names. So if you're looking for them after they were married, you're looking for them using their husband's names, you might not find them.
That's a really good tip.
So that article is called Researching Women Who Kept Maiden Names. I might have already said that. And I do talk about it from the colonial times all the way up to the late 1800s.
Well, what else do you have for us there, Miss Kathleen?
So I am teaching on April the 12th, a Revolutionary War. And again, I'm giving the participants more tools that are normal tools. Like what keeps you from finding them, or how can you quickly work through a brick? And that is being sponsored by the Missouri State Genealogical Association and the Midwest Genealogy Center here in Independence. But
Absolutely.
Anyone in the nation, or anyone, I don't think it even has to be a nation, I think you just need Zoom, can register and participate because it is a hybrid class.
Oh, fun. So you're going to be on site,
free.
but they're going to be hybridizing it and sending it over the Zooms?
And I will have an audience with me also. Bill Edelman from Moscow, he will be talking about the Civil War, and there's, I think, 2 other workshops, but you can find all of that on either my social media or on their websites.
Oh, okay. So
registration is required, John.
Okay, so you need to register. So you could go to the Midwest Genealogy Center's website, register there. That should be no muss, no fuss. And anything else?
If you don't know what's going on with 23andMe and you have that particular DNA, you want to download your data, just go to our blog site and I give you the steps on how to preserve and save your DNA and how to protect your data if you don't want it to be sold.
Anything else?
No, that's it, John, I promise.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
No other. That's the recap. That's apparently what we've been doing for the last month. I'm glad I don't have a headache. And I'm glad our dog's not projectile vomiting anymore.
Oh, my goodness.
He's doing
Mr.
fine, by the
Grant.
way. Everybody, if you're worried about Chewbacca, he's doing absolutely fine.
They're probably more worried about why you keep saying projectile vomiting.
Well, congratulations, you made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for staying. Thanks to listeners from Canada, Mexico, Australia, and, of course, America. Thanks to Chewy Chewbacca Brandt, our part-time duvet tester and full-time projectile vomiter, for his unwavering lack of interest in anything we're doing. The theme song for Hittin the Bricks was written and performed by Tony Fistknuckle and the Morgans. Watch for their next appearance at the General Store in Strawberry. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Do you have a genealogical question for Kathleen? Drop us a line at hittinthebricks@gmail.com and let us know.